All right, y'all. Well, welcome to another episode of So Let's Talk. I want to say, first of all, I do apologize for us coming in a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties, but guess what? We are here. All right. So we are here with the one and only Mr. James Gentleman Jim McFarland. What's up, Mr. McFarland?
Well, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. That's
I
all I
know
can
that's
say.
right. Look, every day we can wake up with a breath of life in our body. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, right?
Well, absolutely. I say to myself every day that I get up, thank you, Holy Spirit, for allowing me to be in your world one more day.
I know that's right. I say something similar, and my husband says this all the time. If we got up and we are up and alive, that means God has something for us to do today.
There you go.
Yep. All right. So everybody's coming in. Listen, thank you so much, y'all, for your patience. I appreciate you all. I see Carmen, I see Wanda, see Sherelle. I thank y'all so much. Technical difficulties is live, but it's real, right? Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for coming in. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Listen, if you have some of your folks that were waiting for us over on the Instagram side, please tell them to come on over to the YouTube side. All right. If you're on Facebook, it's a possibility that I won't be able to see your comments or see who you are. So you just have to come in and let me know who you are and where you're watching from. All right. Hey, Will, how art thou? Thank you so much for coming in. So again, you all are starting to come in, and we are here today. This is another episode of So Let's Talk, and we are here with the one and only Gentleman Jim. Y'all know him as Gentleman Jim. I know him as Mr. Jim, but Mr. James McFarland. And listen, let me tell y'all, he's got a lot to talk about. This is a live episode of Black fashion history. If you've been following on Instagram, you know I've been dropping some little nuggets, some characters, and some folks from uh, fashion history, Black fashion history, and it's been some real great information about people, the lives they lived, and their contribution to Black fashion. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to have Mr. Jim with us live, you know, and he loves to talk about his experience in the fashion industry, how he got started. If you haven't been following him at all, I don't know where you've been. You've been on the rock or somewhere, but he's been here with us for a minute. And I just thank you, Mr. Jim, for being a part of our So Much Talent family, just being a part of the sewing community in general. I know many of us know you from your Brother from Harlem series on YouTube. If you haven't heard of that, if you haven't seen it, y'all, please make sure you go check that out. It's still up in rotation. Some of you may know him from The Tailor and the Dressmaker when he was co host with Victoria Baylor. So
Mm,
make sure that you check those episodes out. And we've got something coming up, or he has something coming up. And we'll
I
talk
sure
about that
do.
a little bit later. All
Mm.
right. So, Mr. Jim, listen, I saw you post not long ago. It hadn't even been a couple of weeks ago. You about to be 80?
80 years old, September 5th.
September 5th.
Mhm.
Wow. And listen, you still got a lot to give.
You better believe it.
Look, you haven't stopped ever since I've been talking to you, y'all. And let me just tell you, I got him on phone. I got his phone number. Oh, I just had to throw that in there. But listen, as long as I've been knowing you, you still been going. I mean, like you don't stop. You just it's one thing after another. Like you just whatever comes to you, you do it. Is that the secret for living long? Is that the
Well, it
secret for
really is. First of all, you have to have an attitude of gratitude and be thankful
definitely?
for what the Lord has given us. Now, I tell
Hmm.
all of my students that He did not just give me this talent, but what He did give it to me is to share my experience with others. When I post that my students can do it, like the young lady I'm posting now. Today she cut out a jacket. She's only been with me 5 weeks now, or six, and already she's making tailored clothes. She told me the other day, she said, if you told me 2 weeks ago I could make a tailored pair of pants, she said, I wouldn't have believed you. I have a method that I have been using all my life. The method was taught to me by the great masters in the late 50s, early 60s. I use the same method. The only thing I've done with the method is improve on it. Now, why do I say improve on it? See, to the sewing community, let, matter of fact, let me cut these things.
I think we lost your sound.
You back with me?
Yeah. Keep talking.
Okay. What I tell all my students is real simple. The method of sewing is always the same. The only thing changes is the distance. When you have a method of making this, that, or the other, it never changes. The only thing changes is the distance, either longer, shorter, wider, or narrower. But the method never changes. So when you get a good method, you stick by it. Now, I want to tell the sewing world, period. I've worked on my method for many, many of years. Now, it's not the method that they taught me, but I've changed their method somewhat to fit today's world, today's sewers.
Hmm. Well, Mr.
Sewers,
Jim, let me stop you right there for, if I can, just for a second, because you said something, and I noticed this was a common thread in some of the research that I did with the sewers like Elizabeth Keckley, Ann Lowe, and those different ones. They went to school, especially like you, like Ann Lowe. She went to school to 4 year design school, but she was so advanced. She only took 2 years. But what I noticed, the common thread is that they didn't really stick to what they learned in school. They found a method that worked for them, whether it was their mother or grandmother that taught them,
mhm,
but they used some of the principles they applied, but the method that they were taught in school, it wasn't working for them.
mhm,
So elaborate on that, because you've always, let me say this again. Let me say this before you get started. Something you told me that I never forgot, and I would always have a habit of saying, well, I'm not a professional, I didn't go to school for that, I'm not an expertise. You stopped me in my tracks and you told me, you said, no, you're an expertise at the level that you're at because you learned it, you know it. So I never forgot that.
yeah,
So expound on the fact that you went to school for it, and you're not talking about not going to school because you're an advocate of education,
yes,
but talk about that, your experience and you doing it your way.
all right. The one thing, I went to the High School of Fashion Industry in New York City, 224, 225 West 24th Street, public high school. When I went to this high school, they had 12 majors that you could have studied. They only have five now. Why? I was asking myself, why? Well, that's because the garment industry is no longer in New York. That school was designed to take you out of high school and put you working in the industry. Now, why do I say this? Is because you see, the majority of these advanced so called sewing schools or fashion schools, they don't teach you how to sew, really. They do not. I'm sorry. I know that for a fact. They teach you theory. Theory
Mhm.
does not get it done. The High School of Fashion Industry gave me the foundation. I make everybody go through this. I don't care how long you've been sewing. You're going to go through this with me. because there's only three components to sewing and the method. The three components to sewing is learning how to sew straight, set in zippers, and make pockets. Everything must be sewn straight, and most everything has a closure.
Mhm.
Zippers, buttons, whatever. It's still straight. Then we make pockets because most garments have some type of pocket on. When you master those, then the next thing is what do we make with those three things? I teach more or less that part of it because the sewing part is not really that hard. It's most people don't know what to do. I hear people say, well, I can make this, but I can't make that. But guess what? If you can sew straight, set in zippers, and make pockets, what can't you make? Because once a garment is cut, and I'm not talking, the fit comes later, but once the garment is cut, physically cut, all you're doing is taking the edge and following what? A seam allowance. That's
Mhm.
what you're doing. That's all you're doing. Is they don't know the method of making a pair of pants, a skirt, a jacket, a dress, a blouse, whatever. They don't know the method of making those. Oddly enough, if it's already cut out, you're just following a guideline, which is a seam
Right.
allowance. That's really all it is. When I went to the high school fashion industry, they told us how important that was. And I piggybacked off of that and I got real good in those three areas. Then they started to show me how to make things. Now, understand, they did not teach me how to make everything, but because I had the foundation of sewing, you understand? Because I had the foundation of sewing, I was just following the seam allowance. If it was cut, I could make it. I do not make a claim of being a designer. Never have, never will. I'm not a designer. I'm the world's greatest recreator. I can see something and make it happen. Now, well, how do I do that? I take a sloper, which is a basic pattern. I can make it look like anything. I take a sloper and I change it. I get a lot of questions. Well, how do I do this? Well, it's very simple. Get your whole lot of sloper, put this sleeve on that part, put this bottom on that part. That's the key to it. But they say all the time I see, I saw this pattern. I don't know how to do it. Look at the pattern, find patterns that are similar, and figure it out. This is done all the time. At least this is what
Mr. Jim,
they keep telling. Yes, ma'am.
you don't blew some minds right there, okay? Because um I say that a lot. Every pattern, commercial patterns, they're repetitive, and I know you agree with
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
there's nothing new, and so there's basically just taking parts from another. I
right.
consider commercial patterns blocks, is what I call them. You just take
Uh-huh.
one piece from here and there.
Here you go.
Like a lot of people trip because they haven't gone to school to learn how to design, or we get
Hmm.
into draping, which is all fine. Nothing's wrong with it, but
Hmm.
I'm glad you say that because a lot of people who are wanting to do these things, to be creative, um, and they just have that unction to just do it, they understand what you just said is that you could just take one part from here and put it with that part and make it what you want it to be. So anybody can recreate, as you say. I love how you say that. I'm not a designer, I'm a recreator. Because
Well,
that's
I
all
am.
we're doing, right? We're
Yes,
just
sir.
recreating. There's nothing new.
It's really not. Now, I'm going to answer this question so they can all hear it. And I say this all the time because I get asked this all the time. Why do I buy this pattern under this house, and this one the same size, and they fit different? That's what everybody's confused about. Now, I'm going to set the world straight on this because this was told to me by one of the gentlemen. who was one of the founding fathers of this, why, for argument's sake, a size 8 in a simplicity fits different than an 8 in a butterick. That fits different in whatever pattern it is. They all fit different. That was purposely done, listen to me, world, by the Jewish community that controlled the industry. Purposely done. After World War II, and Hitler had destroyed Europe, the Jewish community were bringing all their fine tailors and dressmakers over here. Listen to me, world. This was told to me by one of them founding fathers. They had no work for their tailors and their dressmakers. So they decided, it's called collusion. They decided at that particular point of their garment making industry that each house, because back then I would have the House of Gentleman Jim, you would have the House of Hudson. You understand what I'm saying? They called themselves the House of. You make your size 10 or 8, whatever it is, different than your counterpart.
Mhm.
Why? That created what we now call the alteration industry. So that their fine tailors and fine dressmakers had work. They had all
Wow.
these fine people coming from Europe with no jobs for them. You couldn't put them in a factory. There were tailors here, there were dressmakers here. But in those days, only the wealthy went to those type of people. But now you got the mass industry making clothes. They had no work for their people, so they decided, let's everybody make our same size read differently and made differently.
Wow.
Alteration division is your cash cow, like your bread and butter in this industry. Guess what? It's no different than making a garment. You take it apart, you adjust it, you put it back together. That shows you how garments are made.
Right.
You don't have alteration in your repertoire, you lose out on a lot.
Okay, say that again, Mr. Jim, because we were just talking about this today. I learned a lot of, like, this, and several of the other ones do, that I make wedding gowns, prom dresses, blah 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 blah. I didn't go to school for it, but alterations was my teacher. And
Mhm.
I tell anybody, there was a running thread just recently about the alterations. Some people don't like to do it. I didn't like it. I couldn't. I hated alterations.
Most
But
people
what I
do.
found out is that by doing alterations, I learned how to recreate. I
There you
learned
go.
how things were put together, and alterations became my greatest teacher. So say that one more time. If you don't have alterations in your repertoire, what?
You lose out because I'm going to say that you can always get alterations. Can't always get that person coming to you to make a dress. You can't get a steady flow of people coming. The prom season's once a year. They
Right.
get married supposedly one time with that wedding dress. You go to a store and you buy something and it don't fit you. So you have to what?
Mhm.
Alter it.
Alternate. Mhm.
You buy this brand, this one fits. You buy that brand, the exact same size, doesn't fit. So you need to learn how to alter it. And then there are
Right.
certain alterations that pay more. And then when you start, the people that I put in the alteration business, and I'm very clear on this, make anywhere between 75 and $100,000 a year just doing alteration.
Because
Now,
there's always a need for it, right?
always,
Like, it's just like babies being born. You're gonna always have babies being born. You're gonna always have weddings. You're gonna always have funerals.
mhm,
You're gonna always have the need for alterations.
sure, sure. First of all, clothing was the first skill set that God gave mankind. Gave nothing else before that. We had to clothe our naked body. We come in this
Right.
world with nothing on. The first thing he taught mankind was how to cover yourself. If you ever look back at those old Cecil B. DeMille Ten Commandments and Ben Hur and whatnot, there was a whole industry had to make all them clothes. That was not
Mhm.
you or I sitting in the corner trying to make up some garments for 100,000 people. So a
Mhm.
garment industry was created by the Holy Spirit to
Mhm.
clothe our naked body. And it took an
Mhm.
industry to do that, not one or two people.
Right.
So it is the only facet of life that we ever go through that we're going to always buy clothes. You could buy a new car, it sit there for years, but you buy clothes on a regular basis.
That's so
Then
true.
what happens? We expand and we decrease. So we got to have them fixed. You make money off of people, they gain a few pounds, you let it out. They lose a few pounds, you take it in.
That's
Then
so
there's the
true.
big thing. Now listen to me. I got a young lady coming to me from Milwaukee. People come from all over the country to study with me. She's coming next month. She says she had been following me for years on the information that I have out there. She said, I learned how to narrow the shoulder of a jacket. She said, I'm making so much money because they're always too big. The industry, like I say, purposely messed up clothing so tailors and dressmakers have work. Your shoulder is your narrowest part of your body. I don't care how big you are, the shoulder don't get any bigger. It's the meat
Right.
around the shoulder that you put on. But the physical shoulder doesn't get any bigger. The industry makes it bigger, they make the shoulders bigger. You don't have to. So everybody's buying jackets, I'll say jackets, shirts, blouses, where all of this hangs off because it's too big.
Mhm.
And you take it in and you make money off of that.
That's true.
Black women, especially, are shaped proportionately different than European women are. But the industry does not face that need because we don't make up that large amount of percentage. So they don't
Right.
concentrate, well, I'm going to make some clothes. I got a set of pants that I'm coming out for curved women. As women with larger curve in the hip, in the derriere area with a small waist.
Mhm.
I had a lady come from San Diego, California. She was 52 in that area with a 34-inch waist. Everybody knows there are black women out there. Now, you got some European women like that too, but mainly us,
Right.
okay? You, the industry makes the pants wide enough to get that large part in, but they don't sculpt it a waist. It's not hard to
So
do.
true. So
So you
true.
have to what? Recut the pants. Well, there you go. That's more money if you know how to do it right. Now, I did cut the pants out for her and I made her a pattern to fit her because she hadn't gotten that far. This young lady put those pants on in my mirror and cried. Said she never had
Mm.
anything fit her like that. Why? Because this spandex and stretch industry, it don't matter what size you want, it's gonna fit you. But we have so many corporate women now, business
Mhm.
women. A woman that wants a nice pair of slacks, but she don't want to wear stretch. So they don't know how to do that. Because if she buys a pair of pants, she has to buy the biggest part of her to get in it, but then nothing else fits.
Right. Right.
When they bend over, you could see back there.
Mhm.
It's all in proportion. See, I've mastered that now. Oh, I could fit any woman. I don't care what size she is. I don't care how small her waist is. I don't care how soft, how large she is in the seat. So all of these things you learn from experimenting. And I've
Right.
experimented and I created a pattern size for that. This is part of it. But alteration, for those who say they don't like them, if you got a business for yourself, trust me, you need to do that because that keeps your business afloat while you wait for that person with the dress, the
Right.
prom dress, the jacket, the pair of slacks, the skirt. You have to wait on those. You
Hmm.
really do. Now, I have a
Well,
young
I
lady.
did tell that.
That's right. That keeps, that's if you're in business for yourself. If you're not
Definitely.
and you buy something and it doesn't fit, you need to know how to fix it.
Or
Because
you can pay us to fix it. That's
I
okay.
was about to
They ain't
say,
gotta learn how to
come to me. You know, even though I've stopped that, I'd rather give back what God gave me, which is the know how. Then I don't want to sew anymore. I really don't. I like to tell people how to do things. I'm going to start my seminar program back up again for those that are stuck. Now,
Mhm.
outside of the beginning sewers that I have, the majority of the people come to me because they need to know a specific thing to make. I tailor all of my courses on a item or several items that you need to know. I had a woman come from North Dakota to Atlanta, Georgia to study with me. Well, let me tell you something. She drove all the way. Now, you can't get no farther north on the west coast in North Dakota, but you can throw a rock at me in Canada. She drove all the way. She had never made a coat in her life, but she sewed real well. And within a week's time, she was making professional coats, tailored coats. I just posted one of my students who've been with me a short period of time. She's already made the pairs the day we cut out the coat.
Mhm.
5 weeks. She's making tailored garments. What I explained to her is if you can do tailoring part, don't tell me you can't make anything else. The principle is always the
Yeah,
same.
it
It's just
is.
the
Now put a
same.
pin in that, Mr. Jim, because I want you to give all of that out right now.
All
You're
right.
giving out some good nuggets, and already these folks want to start taking your classes. So we're gonna talk about that in just a minute. But what I want to do, and y'all, I know it's a cliffhanger, y'all hanging on, but y'all hang on till you hang on, okay? But I want to go back because you started from somewhere. This was birthed in you and seeded in you from somewhere. So I want to go back to the beginning, if you
Right.
will, and talk to us how you got started. Talk to us about. You kind of mentioned a little bit about the training that you had,
Yes.
but talk about that. Talk about the manufacturing company that you started, Mr. Ori Wells. We'll talk about him a little bit
Sure.
and your experiences, and then talk about. We want to talk about some of the people that you had the opportunity to work with. So
Sure.
I'm gonna sit back and listen.
All right. Over my shoulder, there are two pictures. The gentleman on, I don't know which side, the brother up there. I grew up in New York City. Every man looked like that I ever saw. Every man. I grew up in Harlem. Every man looked like that. I wanted to look like that when I was a child. My mother couldn't afford it. So as life came along, I found out about the High School of Fashion Industry, which taught that. So I learned how to do that in high school only because I wanted to look like that. Now, trust me when I tell you, I was supposed to go to college because nobody in my family at that time had ever went to college. But I got into this industry to look like that and dress like that. So as I came along, all of a sudden I discovered once I had learned how to do that, they made a lot of money. They made more than college graduates did. They made more than all professional people except doctors and lawyers. So I learned how to do this. Once I did that, I felt the brunt of racism hit me all in the face. Why? Because we were not real. There were enough of us in this industry, but not a lot. They didn't want us to get into this industry because they had a monopoly on it. Now, What happened to me? I go to school, I learn how to do this. The High School of Fashion Industry, when I went there, we had an employment agency in the school. When I graduated from that school in New York, I had 5,000 jobs that were at my availability. 5,000. I'm not talking about 500. I'm talking because the garment industry was there. The school was designed to take students and put them right to work. All they had to do was learn, once again, product knowledge because we had the foundation of sewing. It's what do we sew? Then I found out why there were not that many of my fellow students in the industry. I had to fight my way to get to the level that I got to. Now, why do I say that? They put us in the factories where you only know a few skills, but I knew all the skills. I found out later in life that the Europeans were getting the jobs that I always wanted. I couldn't get those jobs. I had a tailor, one of my tailoring teachers, told me, he said, McFarland, you know, you're the best student I ever trained. I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, you've been training for a long time. I can't be all that. He told me. But yet I get a job in a factory making pockets. So all I did was make pockets. I worked there about 2 weeks, and then I went back to the school. And I asked him, I said, what's up with that? He said, well, he said, you're too good for a lot of us. Because I was taught by him, I want you to be better than me, McFarland. He used to always say, I got into teaching because I got that good that fast from the method he taught me. So I was like a student teacher. That's how I got into teaching. So I learned how to communicate with my peers. So he would give me he would tell the lesson, say, McFarland, go show them boys how to do it. Well, that gave me a lot of pride because I thought, I'm bad, we bad. But what it was now I knew how to take the knowledge that I had and give it to somebody else. So that was my first experience with racism in this industry. They didn't want me in it. I was the first black tailor to ever work for Macy's department store. They'd never had a person like me in that level. I wore a suit and a tie. That's why I've always been dressed all my life because I had to wear a suit and tie. But guess what? When I went to that school, I had to wear a suit and a tie too. So I always been dressed up. I didn't wear my first pair of jeans till I was 32 years old. Never wore jeans. I was always dressed. So I go back to this teacher and I say, hey man, something's not right. You're telling me that I'm that good, but I can't get a job. He said, well, he said, they don't allow too many. He said it like this, y'all in that level.
Mhm.
I said, that's not fair. If I'm better than these people, why can't I get a job? He said, come back and see me in about a week. Little did I know that his brother they're Italians. His brother was the head tailor at Macy's department store.
Mhm.
He said, let me see what I can do for you. Go to Macy's on 34th Street. I meet his brother. And he said, look, I got an opening that I cannot fill. He said, if you want it, you got it. Because my brother told me how good you were. It was in White Plains, New York. I live in Harlem. This job was in White Plains, New York. So I said, okay, I'll take it. You gotta understand, I'm a young guy. The minimum wage when I started working was $1 an hour. They're gonna pay me almost two, but I had to go to White Plains, New York. It took me 2.5 hours worth of commuting one way and 2.5 hours commuting the other way to get to White Plains, New York from Harlem. but I was willing to do it. I was a young guy and had no family, living at home with mama. Life was good for me, but it set me on the road that got me where I am. Now, what was it like for us back then? Oh, there were a lot of brothers that were tailors, but they usually worked for a dry cleaner or a little small tailor shop. I worked for Macy's for 2 years, but I never got the pay that they got. But I was outworking them. The blessing was they taught me things that I didn't know. I got that on job training, as we used to call it. So what happened to me? Well, I kept asking for money. They gave me a little bit, but they gave them a lot of it.
Hmm.
I kept saying to myself, this ain't right. What saved me, kept me in this industry for as long as I've been in. I've been in this industry now for 63 years. 63 years I've been doing it. I earned my first dollar in 1961. What kept me in it, there was always work. So Macy's paid me this amount of money, which was more than everybody was making. I made more than school teachers, accountants, you name it, people with degrees. That's what kept me in the industry. They gave me extra work. I could always work overtime, and that's Saturday. So I'm, listen to me, I'm 18 years old at this particular time, and I'm making $125 a week when the average world was making 60 to $65. So I doubled what they were making in this industry. But I went through a lot because the, when I went to White Plains working for Macy's, there was 4 Italian tailors. They sat at a little table. I sat in the back of the room. Didn't bother me because I was making money. Then they threw a ringer in it because they asked me to help them. I started helping them. But then I said, why am I helping y'all? Y'all get paid 30% more than what I'm making. So I slowed down and I only did what I was required to do. And they did the beautiful thing. They said, well, can you help us press out some of these garments? Because back then, Macy's and a lot of places made 2 pants for every suit. So if they sold 20 suits that day, there was 40 pair of pants. Well, it was 4 of them making or working on the 20 jackets. I have 40 pair of pants. So I'm one to their 4. So they asked me, well, can you help me press out? That's when I got good at pressing. But what it did was I saw what they were doing now because I had it in front of me. So now I see what they're doing. I'd say, oh, that's how you do that. Okay, that's how you do that. That's how you do that. I said, okay. So I stopped in doing that extra work for them. They brought in a ringer. They brought in a young Italian boy. And they said, well, we're a little far behind. Why don't you teach him what you know? I said, oh, y'all plan on getting rid of me if I teach him. So I didn't teach him. So then a beautiful thing. Now listen to me. At that particular time, I was making $85. Now I'm just 19 years old. I was making $85 from them, but I'm making another $30, $40 because I'm working overtime. Told me about Barney's in New York. Now all of this is part of how I evolved in this industry. So I got a part-time job at Barney's, but I also had a card now. So that 2 hours and 2.5 hours it took me to get to work took me 35 minutes because I had a car.
Hmm.
I stopped working and I started taking the part-time job at Barney's. And then I asked the foreman, I said, look, I'd like to work for y'all full time. He said, well, we always got to open it. So I did the right thing. I gave Macy's 2 week notice because I wanted to stay in good with them. I didn't care about the tailor. And I got the job with Barney's starting at $100. So I went from $85 to 100 just like that. And they had all the overtime I could use. So by then, I'm not even 20 years old. And I'm making $200 a week in this industry, altering clothes. I knew how to make clothes, but now I knew the value of the alteration business. I'm 19 years old making $200 in New York. That would be equivalent to at least $1,000 in today's market back then. So I just happened to pick the wrong time to start with them because the garment industry used to shut down in the summer for what they call their vacation period. They shut down for a whole month in the summer. That's the way the garment industry was set up. Now, in those days, all of a sudden now I'm married and I'm about to become a father. I needed a job. Ooh, I needed a job. I couldn't wait for that unemployment thing to kick in. So I went looking for a job. And all of a sudden, a job became available. I grew up in Harlem, but I wasn't living in Harlem at that time. They said, we got a job. They need a tailor. I'm wondering why y'all can't get a tailor? Because none of the white boys wanted to go to Harlem.
Mm.
They didn't have a qualified brother to get this job. So they give me a card and it says Ori Walls. First thing I think of, he's an Italian with a name like that. So I go up there to 125th Street, my old stomping ground, because I grew up in Harlem. And I walk into this place, and here's a brother cutting out garments at a table. This is Mr. Ori Wall. I thought he was an Italian guy with a name like Ori. I don't know no brother's name Ori. So now I start to work for him. When I started working in the industry for him now I'm doing alteration, but now I'm making garments as well. Now, first day, the very first day that I was there, who puts his head in the door to say good morning? Because we did that back then, was Jackie Robinson. And I'm startled, you know what I'm saying? Now I'm 20 years old. Now I saw Jackie Robinson play baseball when I was a kid, but now all of a sudden I'm saying to myself, this is your client? We making clothes for him? Yes, we were. Next thing I knew it, day later, here comes Danny Ray. Danny Ray was James Brown's main man to order some suits for James Brown and Maceo Parker and them horn sections. Danny was handling it. James comes in 2 days later. Says, wow, you got Jackie Robinson, now we got James Brown. And all of a sudden, another gentleman comes in. His name at that particular time was Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali. So now he's making clothes for him. And I'm saying, well, don't you make clothes for? He said, well, we make clothes for just about everybody who goes on the stage at the Apollo Theater. Now, I had walked past the Apollo Theater 100 times. My first little hustle when I moved to Harlem was giving out the leaflets on who's appearing at the Apollo Theater. So now all of a sudden, I'm saying, this brother got everybody. So then I went on. I have worked for not just them. I've worked for James Cleveland. I've worked for B.B. King, but I didn't know he had a cousin at that time named Albert King. And then we started making clothes for the Isley Brothers. I just posted a picture of James and Bobby Purified. They sang a song called I'm Your Puppet. The suit that they have on in this picture that I posted is what my mentor, Ori Walls, designed. That's that cutaway front. It had never been done before. And all of a sudden, we had a lot of entertainers. We had a lot of hustlers too. They like them pimps. I'm gonna call it like it is. I made clothes for not just all the alteration. I mean the entertainers. I made clothes for every pimp and hustler that there was in Harlem. I made it for every gangster. I made it for every con man. These were our clientele. We are black tailors in Harlem. When I wrote my book, Across 125th Street, when the magic was real, people said, well, what, we talk about the magic was real. Harlem was magical in those days, in the 60s. We got all these clients. And all of a sudden, they started asking for colors. Never before had they made pink, yellow, red suits, purple suits. They had never done that because they didn't have cloth for it. We had a manufacturer who made cloth, Gladstone of England. We asked them to experiment with some colors for us. We picked out 5 colors. I don't know if you know fabric, most of the suits that men wore in those days were made out of a fabric called mohair and wool and silk and wool shark skin. But they came in browns and blues and blacks and gray. We come out with nothing. We asked our manufacturer, give us some fabric with some colors in it, with some pop in it. They gave us 5 colors. They gave us pink, red, yellow, green, and sky blue in a fabric that you can make a man's suit out of. Well, all of a sudden, one of our favorite clients comes in. His name is Johnny Thunder. He's still alive. I check
Mm.
on people who I know. Everybody else dead, but he's alive. Him and Ronnie Isley. Well, this brother was a real dark skinned brother, but a pretty man. We call it like it is. Brother was a pretty man. He had processed hair. You guys know what a process was back then, because that's what entertainers had. That's when they put that conker lean in your hair and it straightens out. Okay. Johnny was a dark skinned brother, but a good looking brother, and he was built, worked out all the time. We made this brother a pink suit. Now, could you imagine a brother who would be that dog? Entertainer.
Mm.
What's the African
Um,
word?
Jamin Hansu.
Yeah, but Johnny was
Okay.
darker than him. With a
Wow.
pink suit on, processed hair, you understand? Singing his song. Now, what song did Johnny Thunder make popular? Here we go, Luke Luke. Here we go, Luke
Mm.
all on a
Wow.
Saturday. Johnny Thunder,
Okay.
okay? Got a pink suit on. He's on the Apollo stage and he's singing. I'm backstage at the Apollo because who our clients owned the Apollo did also. So I was always backstage, you know, in and out of the Apollo. He's singing this song, and all of a sudden, he finished the song, getting an encore. Come on, come on. He taking all these bows. Finally, now this is Friday because the new shows started on Friday. One of them hustlers in the audience said, "Man, get off the stage. Where you get the suit from?" Now these were our clients too, but we had just got this fabric in. Johnny said, "Oh, I got it from my man Ori. Y'all know Ori." We opened the store at 11 o'clock in the morning because hustlers don't get up early. So we didn't open it early. By 2 o'clock, I sold 70 suits, pink,
Wow.
yellow, purple, by 2 o'clock. Now all of a sudden,
Wow.
we're overloaded. My mentor was a smart man. He taught me business. We did the cutting, but we had a jobber put together our coats. We had one for coats and one for pants. So now we're cutting as fast as we could to give them to them, but we had a thing with them. If we got them our garments at Monday, we got them back Friday, fully finished. That's the way it was because the garment
Wow.
industry was there. So my
Wow.
mentor decided, hmm, I could do this myself. But the backlash was there was always some factories going out, in and out, the smaller ones. They would go in business, they'd be out of business. So they were always selling on the market to hotel shop. I'm talking about everything, sewing machines, tables, irons, presses. They would sell the whole thing. But they wouldn't let my mentor bid on them because he was black. So he did the honorable thing. He had a friend of his, a white boy, who he did business with on another level. He was a tuxedo man. See, we also rented tuxedos in there. Oh, we had everything going on, but we had tuxedos. So he asked him to go bid on this factory that went. That's the only way we could get in it. He ended up buying $80,000 worth of equipment for $6,000. Now they weren't going to
Wow.
let him do that, but we had the white guy do it for us.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that gave me the name Gentleman Jim. That's
Mm-hmm.
where the name came from. I didn't use the name until I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I never used it. I was always known as Jimmy the Tailor, not Gentleman Jim. But he named me that because he used to say, I was, first of all, I was a young guy. I was brought up always to say, yes, ma'am, no, sir, yes, sir, no, ma'am, all my life. That's who I was brought up. And he said to me one day, he said, boy, Jim, he said, you know, you're a real gentleman. That's what I'm going to call you, Gentleman Jim. I still didn't use the name, mind you. I was
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy the Tailor. What did Jimmy the Tailor do? I saw how this man created a manufacturing company because once he bought that equipment, oh, there were tailors everywhere. But now we got Hispanic tailors because they were good at it too. So now we got a whole crew. I mean, a whole crew of workers. Well, but 22 of us. But now we're a manufacturing company. See, before we used other people to do our manufacturing, there was never a manufacturing that company making men's suits that we owned. We always had to farm it out. So he was the first. I don't know of another. I never heard of another. So as I went, with this journey, now I'm learning the real business side of of industry. I didn't go to school for business, but I can run anybody's business. I didn't know all the things in sewing, but I watched him. We created a style of pants for Ronnie Isley or the Isley brothers. We called it the pistol, but we made it out of red, and yellow, and all them colors. So as these people continue to come in, the Orries to get their clothes made, now all of a sudden there's a preacher that moves on our block in one of the vacant old theaters that I used to go to as a kid. His name was Reverend Ike.
Oh, not Reverend Ike.
Yes, the Reverend Ike. So now we're
Wow.
making clothes for Reverend Ike too. Then I met in the building where we were, I meet a gentleman named A. Philip Randolph. He's the brother, civil rights advocate who started the sleeping car porters union. Then I meet another brother who we're making clothes for. His name was Bayard Ruskin, who was Martin Luther King's right hand man. So now I'm meeting all of these people that my mentor did work for. There's no gentleman Jim without Ori Wall. There's
Mm,
none. Because had I not went to work for him, I'd probably be working for Barney's, just doing operations. But now I'm moving and grooving in this industry. I was what you might have called in today's world, they call them a stylist.
mm,
Because now all the players want to parade me around when they meet other hustlers and say, this is Jimmy the Tailor. He's my tailor. Today they call him stylist. So long before this new called stylist thing, I was going around with these guys. Let me tell you something. They took me everywhere. Vegas with the fights. There was always a fight. Ali was always fighting somebody. Went to all the fights because they always wanted to have a tailor on their own. Give me the tailor. It's my tailor.
Mhm.
I got more stories in me than you'll ever believe. And now I'm starting to tell them. One of the reasons why I'm telling them now, because all them bad guys have made their transition. They ain't here no more. Oh, I couldn't deal with that. Then I
Mm.
also had several mafia members for tailors of ours, ball players, the New York Jets, were hot back then. Joe, Broadway Joe. But I made for all the brothers. But Broadway came uptown too. Then we had these, we had that. My mentor was a genius when it came to styling clothes and showed me how to maneuver and make things happen because I didn't know that. Everything that I learned from that man.
Mm.
I got as good as I got watching him. I got the so-called swag from listening to him handle those people. Oh, he could handle them too. Then we had a run on good cop, bad cop. Oh yeah, we we had narcotics cops who was security for the dope boys.
Mm.
We had thieves coming in every moment of the day, bringing hot merchandise, and everybody sold something back in those days. I had a family, so after it was all said and done, I went home to my family. The opportunity to be a bad guy, I could have been one because it was all around me. But the clothing industry saved my life, really did.
Wow. Well, Mr. Jim, I know we all can listen all day long. Like, we talk a lot, and I'm learning something new today that I haven't heard before. Some of the things that you just shared. So I'm just like, my mouth is dropped. But for those of you that don't know, I mentioned this earlier on, but Mr. Jim has a channel, has a series on his channel, and he'll give you that information. But he did a series called "A Brother from Harlem," which he details a lot of this information. So you can go back and listen to that.
Yeah.
He also had a series with Victoria Baylor. Victoria started out with 10,000 sewing hours, but at some point, you actually taught Victoria. You've taught several of the folks here that's on this broadcast now, um, but you had a show with her called The Tailor and Dressmaker.
Mhm.
So you've got a lot of series, and in just a second, we'll talk about what's coming up. But
Okay.
I was impressed because um, you've taught several people in our sewing community. And like you said, they're not short of traveling a long distance just to get to you. Like you had a business in Savannah. Now you're residing in Atlanta. So we've
Mhm.
already got some folks who ready to schedule classes with you. So we'll talk about that a little bit later too.
Okay.
But but it doesn't take you long to get across what you need to get done. Like the young lady, I've been watching her progress. She just learned how to create those tailor a pair of pants, and now she's tailoring a jacket. To some, that blows the mind because it seems like it's a lot, because tailoring is not just something you can just do and you can just fly through it, and you got to make it look good. But the way you teach it, you grasp it. You can grasp it really fast. So you've got a lot of people that have learned under you, trained under you, that have gone on to have businesses, like massive businesses. Like you talked about the alterations, people that are doing alterations, they just making pennies, they making good money. But you've got a lot under your belt. We probably wouldn't even be able to talk about everybody that you've trained that's gone on to open up their own businesses. But you want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go into what you
Yep.
got going on now.
There's a young lady who's on Instagram all over. Her name is Jatrika Wright. Her business is called J Wright Collection. I taught her how to sew She was, I think, 22 or 23 years old. I taught her in Savannah. She lives now here in Atlanta. Well, Jay Wright is one of the hottest things out. If you look at her uh, Instagram page, but she's got most of the pictures of the dresses. She knew zero about sewing. Nothing, 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 nothing. This child is in the six figures, well into it. I have another young lady who came to me. Her line is called uh, Page 17, the Roman numeral 17.
Jasmine.
Jasmine,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
She's into the wedding gowns.
Mhm.
She's doing fabulous. I can go on, but these were the ones who knew nothing about really sewing. Then I had another student. Uh, I'm trying to think of what she goes by. Fabian is her name. She goes by Fabian Company. She knew nothing about sewing. She's all over. They they took what I gave them, the basics, and then I showed them how to scramble it up and make souffle, scramble it up, and make the best sweet potato pie you ever want to make out of clothing.
Okay now.
You know what I'm saying? They could do a prime rib now out of clothing. They really knew nothing. Then I have those who had something, and I help them take that to another level. And I work a lot with those type of people, like the lady who came from California, like the lady who came from North Dakota. I've got at least three or four ladies who I taught bona fide men's tailoring, the whole thing to them, because they didn't do it for business. Their husbands were in corporate America, and they were spending
Mm.
$2,000 to $3,000 to make suits. They're making their suits their husbands' clothes now. They don't want a
Wow.
business. They just want to help their husband. You understand?
Wow.
With his wardrobe. So they don't just come to me for a business. They either come for themselves or for their husband or for their children. I got a lady now coming from Milwaukee. There's a fabulous bridal shop in Milwaukee. But she want to do men's thing because the men are coming at her. There's all kind of, in other words, don't tell me what you can do. Just say you don't know
Right.
how to do.
Right.
You know, like I say, seeing a lot of them are self-taught. Some of them
Mhm.
were, some of them had a little education. Some of them went to over here. They got a little lesson. That little young lady, listen to her, who's making that red suit that she's making up now.
Mhm.
She told me when she walked in here, she said, "Mr. Jim, I'm taking this little course online." She said, "They're teaching me how to make an eyeglass case. That ain't nothing but a little triangle box.
Right.
That's all they're teaching her." She's the one who's been with me like 5 or 6 weeks, is now making tailored clothes. Who didn't think she could do until she got the system that I use. That's all. I'm real
Wow.
thankful and proud of that. I'm proud of the students that I have. I'm not here to take bows for them. I'm not here to say they're one of mine. I tell people because I want people to see what can be done. That's all.
Right. And you've always said that, Mr. Jimmy. You've always been very helpful, in steering in the right direction. But I like the fact that you do express the fact that you do need to do the work. You've got to do
Mhm.
the work.
Okay.
One of the things that's funny that you always express is that you've got to sew a straight line,
There
and
you
that's
go.
the key.
Yeah.
So I could just see you like a teacher with a ruler. Nope, that line ain't straight. Nope, let's straighten it out
I do that. I
because
make
it's
them
the
take it out.
key,
Yeah.
right? Wow. So, Mr. Jim, I know time is winding down. I want to take up a whole lot of your time, and I mean we can talk all day long. You know that. But talk about. I had a couple of questions, and I don't know if Carmen is still on here with Black Swan Network. Um, she asked a question about how I think how can we find you? How do we sign up with you? How do we sign up for a class with you? And then the other question is, are you considering or will you ever consider creating your own patterns, your pattern line?
People ask me that. I'm going to create only one pattern line. That's a pattern line. I call it curved women. Everything else is, I'm just copying somebody else. You understand? But
Hmm.
I'm going to create a pattern line of tailored pair of pants so they don't have to wear stretch pants for curved women. Oh, I've got it down pat. Trust me when
Hmm.
I tell you. You understand? I once did a line of clothes for plus size men and women, and I made up to a size 12X.
Wow.
12X. Most women
12X.
very rarely come past five. You understand what
I was
I'm
getting
saying?
ready to say, you don't see past 5X.
I made a size up to 12X. A
Wow.
12X has a waist size of 85.
Mm. A waist
Mm,
size of 85.
85.
Wow.
A chest cavity of 90 inches. That's a big
Mm.
person.
Yeah.
But I perfected it because I knew how to shape and curve to fit them so it just doesn't look like a big pair of something on them. Oh, it was stylish.
Hmm.
It was stylish. That was about a good 20 years ago. I did that for them. That company
Wow.
went out of business, but I made those patterns for them. So I started studying the anatomy of people, big people, small people. Uh, Latinos are built a certain way. Asians are built a certain way. Black folk are built a certain way. European white women are built a certain way. American white women are certain way. I fit them all because I could look at them, see what has to be done and what's needed to be done.
Wow. That's having a trained eye. But the key to it all is not necessarily going to like a 4 year college, 4 year
Mm,
education, but it's
no,
studying your
no.
niche, right?
My lessons are drop in the bucket compared to going to these fashion schools that don't teach you how to sew, but teach you theory and charge you $50,000 to get in them, and you still don't know anything. 60 Minutes
Right.
did a thing, maybe 20 years ago. 60 Minutes did a thing on these schools, and everybody was saying, I'm in debt up to here, and I didn't learn anything because they don't really teach them how to sew. Now, you want to learn how
Right.
to sew? If you're a child and living in the New York area, go to High School of Fashion Industry.
Mm.
First thing they teach you is how to sew. I put fashion industry up again. I take any one of them students today and put them up in against anyone out there. Anyone. They teach you how to go into business for yourself. Then you have the schools like FIT, which is an accredited so-called thing. But guess what? The industry could care less about your degree. There's one no can
Hmm.
you do the job. That's all they care. I get all of those SCAD students say, "Oh, I went to SCAD," and they're waving their. I said, "Well, let me see what you can do on that sewing machine." Well, I didn't learn that. So what's the degree going to do for me?
Yeah. And that's
See?
facts. I
Yeah.
have several of my acquaintances that have gone to school or design fashion design teachers, and they have told me themselves that they don't teach the sewing aspect of it. They teach the fundamentals and they teach the principles of fashion design, but they don't teach the sewing. So,
Yeah.
like many of these designers out here now, and I use Vera Wang as an example.
Uh-huh.
Like anybody can be a designer,
Sure.
right? She
Let
don't
me tell you.
sew, or she didn't know how to sew, but she
Let me
had
tell
an
you this.
idea and a concept.
That's it. What is a design? If I step on somebody's toes, I'm sorry. If all you can do is draw a picture, you are not a designer. You know what you are? You're an artist that draws clothes. Simple as that. That's all you are. My motto is if you can sew it, you can sell it. Or, like you say, you come to people like us.
Hmm.
That's all. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feeling, but if all you can do is draw a picture of
Facts.
clothes, that's what you are. You're an artist.
Yeah. Well, I agree, Mr. Jim, because and I tell people that that's why you have different segments in the industry. You have illustrators,
Mm-hmm.
you have the sewists, or the
Hmm.
tailors, and you have the the ones that have the idea,
Yeah.
the designers that can think it, but you don't really have all of them in one.
No.
That's a phenom. If you got somebody who can think it, who can put it
Mm-hmm.
together, who can sew it, that's a well-rounded person. Not taking anything from the individuals, the illustrators and the designers and the creators, but when you have somebody that can do all of that, that's something different.
Hmm. That's
That's
true.
something different. But all right, so Mr. Jim, because a lot of these folks they want to know because they ready to jump on your class right now.
So, so
Tell us where you're
all they have to do,
located.
yeah, all they have to do is contact me via my email. And it's real simple. It's gentlemanjimmt@gmail.com. Email me. I'll send you my phone number. Okay? Contact me and we can talk. I don't just take people,
Awesome.
man. I got to talk to you. I got to make sure you're serious about this because with my all of my success stories, I got some failures. Oh, I
Hmm.
do. I have some failures because they thought it was just up here. It has to come from your heart because when your heart triggers your mind triggers your hands. It's all in the hand, but there has to be a linkage. That's right.
I
Like,
like that.
like I always tell people about my 10 pins.
Hmm.
I use very few pins. These are pins, and they work better than a pin in and a pin out. They really do. Yeah,
I'm glad to hear you say that because I don't like pens. I mean, I
yeah,
use them when I need them, but
that's right. Every now and then I use a pin, but these are pins because they hold it down. They can maneuver it. If you got a pin, you got to put the pin in, get it right, pull the pin out. These move as you move. Now, to get in
right.
touch with me,
I
like I
love it.
said, is just a matter of just contacting me. Just
Hmm.
contacting me, and I'll get right back to whoever it is. I
Okay.
design my courses on what you need. Then I have a beginner course. I try not to really do beginners, but every now and then I get
Hmm.
a beginner that I need to do. So
So let me ask you, because one of the questions are somebody wants to bring a group to you. How many can you take at one time? And
I never take more than 5.
no more than five. Okay, that's great to know. And if can you share your email one more time?
Yes. Gentleman Jim, MT for Master Tailor at gmail.com.
Okay, so that's gentleman Jim MT at gmail.com.
That's it.
All right. Somebody write that down, and I'll make sure it's in
Now,
the notes here.
what I'm,
But yeah, space is very limited.
yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start those seminars up that I did before, which are trigger points. Remember, I had the one with you. Things that go
Hmm.
wrong in
Yeah.
so. I
Yeah.
got one just designed for that. All the things that go wrong. And it's
Okay.
not that they go wrong, it's just that you don't know the right way.
And that's the truth. I like what you said earlier too, because many people just do stuff because everybody else is doing it, look good, and they
Mhm.
fizzle out. But I'm like you, I don't like nobody waste my time. If I feel like you're not interested, then
Yeah, I'm sorry.
get somebody else to do it. But if
But
you're
yeah,
serious, then and
yeah.
I've seen you do this. You spend good quality time with those that are interested, that and you it's an investment. It's an investment of your time, and it's an investment of their time and their money. So you
Mm.
have to put your money where your mouth is. But
Yeah.
what I do know is that you have your results, and the results of your students speak for itself. So and you ain't got to explain yourself. You ain't got to, show, look what I did. I mean, you got the proof is in the work.
Mhm.
And now you also have a book or books out.
I have a book out that I wrote, published many, many years ago. It's called Across 125th Street When the Magic Was Real. Okay. Notify me. I'll tell you how to get that. I just shut my website down because I'm redoing it right now. But
Hmm.
I have a new book that I finished and one that I'm working on. And the one that I'm working on now that I haven't finished is called Streets in Black and White. It's all about growing up in New York. I mean,
Wow.
everything. I'm telling you exactly what young brothers did growing up and how I got into the industry by doing them things. And I say that because I was a typical boy growing up in New York. Okay. I have a piece out that's on NPR, National Public Radio, in their section called Story Corps. You have to go, I don't can't remember, it's either James McFarland or Jim McFarland, of which I talked about going south, not knowing what segregation was.
Mm.
That's been airing since 2005.
Wow.
Soundbite from it, where I talked about not knowing what the real deal is. I'm telling you what it was like to not know what segregation is. You guys that grew up in the South, y'all knew which either was passed down a family. Some of you experienced it more than others. I didn't, but I came south not knowing what was really going on. And I told this story to National Public Radio. It was supposed to
Mm.
be on the air for a couple of weeks. Here we are in this almost 20th year, they're still airing it because they were so intrigued and so taken by this story that it just blew them away. I do motivational speaking. I never start anything that I say without telling that story. Now, it's going to be in my YouTube channel as well, Streets in Black and White. I
Okay.
tell that story because I want actually people that follow me, and if you follow and subscribe to me, you automatically know what I do. Now, what am I doing new? Well, I don't know if you all know who Queen Aniva is. She just opened the African Textile Museum this past weekend.
Mm.
Here's a lady who, about my age, she's only a few years, well, I won't tell people's age, but she in my bracket. Been doing this for a long time. And we're collaborating on a couple of things that will they'll be out shortly. And like I say, you follow me, you'll know what's happening. And it's called Queen and the Gentleman.
Wow.
It's going to be showing African textiles of what was and what I've taken a look, the same look, and modernized it. So you're going to see the
Mm.
old and the new on this new series. Hopefully,
Wow.
we'll get around to. I'd like to bring in some designers that I know, some I don't know, and let them tell their story on our. We're going to do a podcast for that. But the series is going. It's going to come out on YouTube, and we're going to talk about the different things in sewing, like I do all it. It's similar to what Victoria and I did, the
Hmm.
tailor and the dressmaker. It's something
Okay.
like this lady is a fabulistic person. I never in my life seen a sister in this industry that can roll up her sleeves and get down. I watched her put the museum together. I helped her a little, move some heavy stuff. Everything else she did.
Wow.
That's
I
the
love it, Mr. Jim. I love how your respect for for our culture, your respect for the fashion industry, um, the way it was then and the way it is now, and your contribution to keeping the true art of fashion and design alive. Like I feel real. I don't know about anybody else, but I feel very blessed that I'm able to sit here and talk with. I feel like I'm talking with history, and that I can just call on you and say, Mr. Jim, But I
And
feel like I'm talking
you
to
go, yeah,
history.
yeah.
I feel blessed because it's not many left that's that has the true nature of the art. You know what I'm saying? It's
The
like the
diamond,
true sense of fashion.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this has been awesome, y'all. I mean, like y'all haven't heard, like he can go for days and
Uh,
we could just sit there all day long. But Mr. Jim, I want to thank you for taking the time. I mean, you didn't hesitate when I called and asked if you would, be willing to do this. You didn't hesitate. So I really appreciate that. I thank you for that. Thank you for sharing everything that you did today. And if you're not following Mr. Jim on YouTube, what's your YouTube handle?
my YouTube handle is Gentleman Jim Taylor,
Gentleman Jim Taylor. All right, y'all heard it here.
not the
Y'all
name
heard
Taylor.
what's coming
Yeah,
down the pipe.
yeah.
Hmm.
I was going to say, YouTube. I mean Taylor at Taylor, not the name Taylor.
Right, Tailor.
LOR, right?
Okay. All right,
Or
awesome.
if you go to the Tailor and the Dressmaker,
Hmm.
if you pull up that, they got an icon of my big head. Tap that, and it automatically puts you in it.
Not the big head, Mr. Jim.
You don't have a big head. I've been humble. I've been humble all my life for a reason. You know, we're all God's creatures. That's all.
Yeah, and you are very humble. You've always been like this, just mild mannered, just very gentlemanly. You've always been like that ever since I've known you. Always
I'm
studied
still that
out.
way too.
So I love it. I love it. But thank you. Maybe again, maybe we'll have a little bit more once you get the series going, The Queen and the Gentleman, and the your next
We'll
book
talk
out.
again.
Yeah, we'll have you come back.
No problem.
All
I'm
right.
always available. Is because, like anything else, too many of us get to certain positions, certain heights in life. We don't share. We don't
Hmm.
share what we do. We don't help thy fellow man. Now,
Right.
I help all colors, but I really want to make sure my people understand what you can do. I'm just, like I say, I'm a brother who didn't go to college, but I do better than most.
Hmm.
But I've not turned my back on somebody and said, no, I ain't going to help you. I know a lot of tailors will not share their information. I know that.
Oh, that is so true. I've dealt with that myself, and but
Yeah.
I'm much like you. I love sharing. I love giving because it's so much. I mean, I can't reach everybody.
No,
And
no.
then if I don't share what's in me, how is it going to be perpetuated? How is it going to be spread? You know.
There you go.
Um, One last thought. Carol brought up a great point, and she want to know if you would address the fast source who do it in an hour. What advice or what wisdom would you give the fast source who sew in an hour?
The fast souls who sew an hour,
Hmm.
what advice? Slow down. It's as simple as that. Slow down. Let me tell you why. It takes the same amount of time to do it right as it takes to do it wrong. When you don't do it right the first time, it takes 9 times more amount of time to get it right. So get it right the
Right.
first time. That comes from your basic skills of what I always talk about. Sewing straight. People get it wrong because it ain't sewn straight. Oh, they're
Right.
big head to get it finished. Look, I make a tailored jacket, fully lined, inside of 4 hours. I make a tailored pair of pants inside of 3 hours. Fully. Now this is ladies. Say men's. Men's take a whole lot longer.
Hmm.
I make a
That's why I
skirt.
don't do it.
Yeah, I make all these things because of the way I, because of my system. That's all.
Right.
Everybody needs a system. I'm not saying mine is the only system out there, but mine works. That's all.
And this, my sisters and brothers in the sewing industry, is why you need to get with Mr. Jim and learn for yourself. Learn the system. All right.
All of the
So they're gonna
system.
be calling you. And let me just say this: he is not one that would ignore phone calls. He literally takes the time and talk with you. So y'all don't bombard him all at one time. Not all at once. But y'all, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I'm sure this has been a wealth of knowledge for you. I've learned some new stuff. I mean, a lot of things I've learned, I've known for years. Um, and so, for those of you that were with us when Mr. Jim did our first retreat, he was one of our speakers and a wealth of knowledge, wealth of information. But we may be calling on you again, Mr. Jim.
I
Come on
just,
back down.
listen, let me tell you something. The American Sewing Guild been after me for 30 years. I finally agreed to do something with them again. Okay.
Okay.
But it ain't till October. I just,
Mm,
like I told, I forgot the name of the lady, I got it written down. I don't like to plan that far in advance. But they kept on me and on me. I decided, okay, I'm gonna put that one in my calendar for October.
mhm,
But the American Sewing Guild, I did something for them years ago.
mhm,
They're still talking about it. But like anything else, I want what I do to be appreciated. Nothing more.
mhm.
I don't want to take no bows for your accomplishments. I just want to know that I taught you right, it's working for you. I
Well,
don't like to
job well
brag.
done, sir.
Yeah,
Job
that's
well
all.
done.
That's all. Okay?
So these good folks, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time.
So,
And oh, one last question: are you on Instagram? Of course you are.
yeah,
What's your Instagram handle?
honey, I got three of them. I got it screwed up. I got all kind of Instagram. James McFarland, Gentleman Jim, something, something. Just put Gentleman Jim. You'll find me.
Yeah, you're definitely fine. I'll make sure we have all that information in here. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
he
get
let
all
me
that
tell
to
you,
you.
he is
All
all
right.
over the place. He keep going and he ain't planning on stopping. All
Okay.
right, but I do want to thank you all for watching. If you make sure to share this out, tell your friends because this was a treat tonight. So, but
It's
thank
been my
you
pleasure.
again, Mr. Jim. I love you to life, and we'll
So,
talk soon.
okay.
All
Bye for
right,
now.
y'all have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.